So I went into I hired in to, well, at the base there, they had a big shop where they repaired communications equipment. And boy, you know, some of these military equipment is quite sophisticated.
Right.
Because they, I guess they can transmit in code and all that kind of stuff. So I worked on those for a month or two, and then let's see, after that, let's see, where in the world did I go? Oh yeah, my younger brother at that time was working in the construction of a power station.
Huh.
One of the biggest that you can make, about 10 stories tall.
Right.
They'd just got all the ironwork up, and he was the manager of the instrument department. He called and wanted me to come up and go to work. Well, my goodness, sure. Start me out at, I think it was $6 an hour.
Huh.
Well, I sure beat $2 an hour.
Right.
So naturally I took the job, and I told the wife and that I'd go ahead and go up there and get everything settled and so forth. And so only thing is I had to hire in as a helper, as low as you can get.
Right.
Probably lower than a janitor. I don't think you had janitors yet when a building's not built.
Right.
But anyway, I worked there for 3 months, and I got a raise because I learned all about being a helper.
Right.
You know, you had to learn how to pack stuff and run with stuff and climb around and give parts and stuff to workers, and really complicated. So I got a $3 raise. Okay, that's $9 an hour. Can't beat that.
Right.
And my wife did a lot of complaining, and I sent her money though.
Right.
Plenty money. But she's complaining because she wanted a bigger apartment still.
Right.
And so then 3 months after that, I got, after that, the first 3 months I got to be a helper.
Right.
A fitter helper. And this was the instrument department fitter helper. And so I worked that, and what you did that, of course, you just ran and did everything for the instrument fitter. You had an instrument fitter, you was a helper.
Right.
And you did the running if they needed a new tool or something heavy to pack on another little job or something. I got that. Well, 3 months after that, I got to be a fitter. $3 more raise. Well, 3 months after that, I made fitter. And that paid, I don't know, that's real good.
Right.
$6 more on to what was that last one?
$3.
$3 added on to whatever. that is why construction. That's why I worked on for Brown and Root on 2, 3 more power plants during my lifetime.
Right.
But now this is just the first one, and I made fitter. So I went back home, and my wife was real mad at me, and she was real mad at me because I didn't quit my job and go home and get a $2 job wheeling cement.
Right.
So after I got home, I got a job in a TV repair and sales shop. It's just a small shop, but I probably got $4 an hour.
Right.
And well, she was all hot and bothered, but I found out why. Like, I would say that no, we can't move right now. We can't find a cheap house, and we couldn't afford something as good as we got now. And she said that she had, I guess, been going to this here juke joint or as a bar.
Right.
And she says, "Boy, I'd sure like to get you down there." Well, I told her before that I wasn't scared of anybody because I learned how to kill a person with my bare hand.
Right.
And I never tried that. But you know what I mean.
Right.
What type of fighting. And I told her that I wasn't scared of nobody. And she said, "Boy, just come on down there with me tonight. I'll see how good a fighter you are." I told those guys about how mean you are and everything, and they'll really fix your whatever. So anyway, I found a job where I had to go I think that was the job. Well, if I get the wrong job, I'll tell you about it later. But
Right.
I went to Florida, and oh no, that's when I got the job with that television service place.
Right.
And so I worked there, but I wasn't making enough money. Of course, I'd rented another small house.
Right.
Smaller than what she's living in, because that's all we could afford. And she's always crabbing around and all that kind of stuff. And so anyway, I worked at that shop for 3 or 4 months maybe. And oh yeah, that's when my brother called from Las Vegas. I guess he'd got himself a construction job or something.
Huh.
I guess, well, he was that brother that was a real, what did I call him before? A smart aleck.
Right.
He's not only a smart aleck, but he was a schemer. I mean, and he would, if he liked the pants he was wearing, he would talk you out of them. And he wanted to no, that job was later.
Right.
This next job was working I went to California, Los Angeles.
Right.
And I got a job with an aircraft company. But before that, I got a job in Texas. Fort Worth, Texas.
Right.
I had to hesitate because I had to, what was its name? Anyway, it was Fort Worth, Texas. I got a job with Consolidated Vultee Aircraft Company. And they was building the B-36 bomber. And that was just on the outskirts, eastern part of the, just from Fort Worth.
Right.
And Fort Worth, well, you know, is awful close to that other big town over there. I tell you, my memory is getting bad. But anyway, so I worked there. And I bought an unfinished house about, maybe 10 blocks from the fence that surrounded the airport, or the factory. And that factory, of course, the B-36 bomber was a big bomber. Well, most people know it's the biggest bomber in the world.
Well, biggest propeller blade bomber that the U.S. ever built.
It had, talking about propellers, it had three reciprocal engines on both sides. That's 6 reciprocal engines of 3,600 horsepower apiece, plus 2 jet engines, big jet engines on the outside wing of those. And you know, I saw that airplane. Well, I was working on pre-flighting at the time, pre-flighting the communications equipment and all the other instruments. They had a lot of instruments on that thing.
Right.
They could receive enemy radar, feed it into their analyzers, produce a copy, and send it back.
Huh.
I thought that was really neat. That's just part of the stuff they had on there. Have we got much time?
I got plenty.
Okay, so I happened to be out on the flight line. See, the factory was right next to the Air Force base that was there. And if I ever think of the name of the Air Force base, I can tell you that. But so it just happened to this day. Well, before that, one night I counted 80 of these B-36 taken off on them. What do you call it? Checking out airplanes and stuff, pre-flight
Right.
stuff. Well, no, not pre-flight, but it was. They had a mission to go to it was Africa and back without stopping, just to see how the airplanes
Right.
held up. And that was a good airplane because they had a huge bomb bay. And
Right.
they had a tunnel about this big around that was on the back wall of the pilot's compartment that went down and up to the aft department. They had a regular little apartment back there with bunks and cooking facilities and, you know,
Right.
just a regular little apartment back there. And what they did, they had like little railroad tracks going through there and a little sled, and you grabbed a handle and swung down in there with your feet first on. It was on this sled, and then you took off the brake and it went down the hill and back up to and you was there.
Right.
That's when you got hungry, or the ones that went to sleep, or so they must have had a double crew or something. Anyway, the 80 going and coming back was a success. But now, this certain day, I was out on the flight line, pre-flighting the communications equipment and all the other stuff.
Right.
To make sure it was working right. And there's generals, I saw 2 or 3 generals and all kind of big wigs, you know. And factory people, supervision and all that. And there's all a bunch of them milling around there, and I was wondering what's going on and what they's doing. They had a test pilot or crew on there, and you could see it way up in the sky. And the thing did a dive straight down to where everybody was standing.
Huh.
Got bigger and bigger and bigger, and that thing was really moving. And it pulled up before it plowed into everybody.
Right.
Thank goodness, because I was there too. And it was, I'll tell you, it couldn't have been over 6 feet off the runway. And if you don't think that was the biggest bomber in the world, and it was really moving, if that wasn't a sight. And it got to the end of the runway and started blowing up. And from where I was looking, it looked like it was going straight up. And you know, they just kept going straight up, or it did. It looked like it was straight up. Well, they had all that power. And then they leveled off with a little roll there and came straight at us right back down. And right up, just 6 or so feet off the ground. Now that was, I'll never forget how that looked. That was something. And of course that people oohing and awing and stuff like that. So that's probably the biggest event that happened to me while working there. And then I left there and I went to work on the Boeing company. You know where the Boeing company is?
Right.
Seattle. Well, now the Boeing company is just a little bit south down in, I forget the name of that valley going, you probably know what it is, there's a valley
Right.
going down south. Well, the Boeing company itself wasn't there, but the
Right.
school I went to, the Boeing school was. Seemed like I'm always going to school. Well, that's, you know, you had to learn the equipment.
Right.
Because that equipment is different and does different jobs. And a lot of it's the same, most of it's the same. But, you know, in school, they had different machinery, like they had a press, drill press. You could put a piece of metal in it, and then it would drill holes in it here or there, or mill out a channel or whatever it's programmed to do, and it was programmed by a paper tape, or it might have been plastic that had the instructions on it.
Right.
So that we had to keep these electronic parts of it. And you could actually, the B-52, the whole wing, the frame was put in a jig, and the metal and stuff put on by machines and stuff, and each rivet was just exactly where it should be and with the exact pressure that it should be. Well, you know, that computer could drill a channel within 3 millionths of an inch. It could drill a hole. The computer could tell it to drill a hole, longitude, latitude, and
right.
so forth, and all the whatever it took for instructions. And that's exactly where it would be. Now that's what our technologies was, and that was a few years ago. Imagine what it is now.
Right.
Boy, I watched a thing on TV where it showed the automobile lines, you know, and it was amazing what machines do. They even use them putting cars together and stuff.
Yep.
So, anyway, we lived in, well, it was a little, maybe about 5 miles down the valley to where the school was, or closer to the school. And when I got up in working in the factory, which was closer up, I forget exactly how close it was up to Seattle, but it was between where the school was and Seattle. And so I worked there. Oh, it must have been at least a year or two. I could look in my tax records. I can tell a lot by my tax records because
right.
I've got on it all, and it tells where I lived and who I worked for, how long and all that. Or it might not have said how long, but I'll have to get all that out and figure all that out sometime. But anyway, I'd bought me this here 12-foot aluminum speedboat.
Huh.
And a 25-horse Evinrude motor. If you're familiar with boats and motors, that is a little bit too big for the boat.
Huh.
But I never had no trouble because I was careful how I turned and stuff. But I would sure get out and go. But it was a lot of fun. Now, I have a brother, my smart aleck brother worked up there somewhere, maybe in the same factory, I don't know. I forget.
Right.
But I was over to their place once, and we decided to go up the canyon. They had a real nice lake up there. And then part of that lake, back in towards the far end of the lake, they had a land spit that comes out in the land with trees, just a column water going out, not a canal, but irregular piece of water. And then they had a sort of island, and on the tail of that island, they had a nice sandy beach out there with trees up on each end. And there was water, lake on both sides. And it must have been about 15 feet across. Real popular place for picnics.
Right.
So my smart aleck brother wanted to go up there and do some water skiing. So, well, I was into that water skiing. We did a lot of that.
Right.
And my boat would flat full of water skiers. And so we'd got a picnic place out on the real land, you know.
Right.
And nice picnic place. And I'll have to stop calling him Smart Aleck, but he was. And I just didn't like him because I thought he was dishonest.
Ah.
You know, in his dealings. Just like he would invite us over for Sunday dinner.
Right.
And he said, just come on over, and me and my other brothers and family, and we'll have dinner, and we'll all sit down and watch the football game. And so right after dinner he said, just you want to come out here and help me build my back porch on? And so we'd spend all day building him a back porch. Well, it didn't take us but all day, all afternoon.
Right.
That's why I call him Smart Aleck, and you know.
Right.
And, so he was behind the motor, and boy, we was hightailing it down that lake, and we came to the end there, close to the end where that sand was, and there's 4 or 5 girls picnicking out there. And he says, hey, whip me around there so I can go over that sand into the other water on skis. I said, okay. And boy, I got around there, and what I did, I was going full speed with a whip. You know how you're curving, well, the skier behind you really picks up because you're slinging him around. And he hit that sand perfectly. You know what happens when skis hit sand?
They stop.
They stop. He was going fast and it stopped. And he was almost airborne, tumbling over clear. He didn't quite make the other water though, and he dug down in the sand. It didn't break nothing or anything, but I could tickle me. I knew what was going to happen. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. Anyway, I bought me a motorcycle, a big old Harley, and the police department was selling their old motorcycles. I mean, they all look brand new.
Right.
Boy, leather bags over the rear wheel, and it was really looked like new ones. And one time, me and my wife was up riding all around town, you know, when just looking and stuff, just enjoying the nice day. And I didn't notice I was getting low on gas, and so I stopped at a gas station, and I didn't think that if did I have my wallet with me? No, I didn't. So I pulled in the gas just leaving town there, Seattle. I had to go down to our little town apartment, and I run out of gas. So I pulled in, gassed up, before I realized I had my wallet with me. So, well, that's a predicament.
Right.
And so I told him, well, I'll leave my wife here for collateral while I go home and bring some money back. So, well, she did. She didn't get too mad. She was a good wife. So that's what I did. Went home, went back. But Seattle, I really liked Seattle. It was. I was living with my brother too. He lived on the second lake down. You know, there's the main lake, and then there's the second lake, right?
Right.
Well, you know the big causeway going across there. Just about a half a mile north, on the west side, my brother had rented a house in there.
Huh.
Big, long, must have been a block long, big yard, and so that's where we lived with him after a while, for a little while. And so I enjoyed riding around Seattle because on the north side, where of the business district, there's, I forget whether that's the water that's going in the lake or what. I think that must be. I mean, but it has a lot of houseboats.
Right.
Big, good houseboats. I think 2-story even, some of them. And a big bunch of them. It's really interesting. And then there's another place that goes around on down that has, it's an older area where they had these little fishing huts on pontoons and houses, fishing houses and stuff. And then there's Hood's Canal. You know where Hood's Canal is? That's on the south side of Seattle. It's a canal that goes on where, I don't know where it went that way, but going back this way, it winds around and then goes out on towards to the ocean.
Right.
There's some islands and different island places out there. But that's where I lived for a while when I first moved there.
Right.
And that's why I bought the boat. So we learned a little bit about while I was working there. That's why I liked Seattle. I like the weather, and I tell you, they've got mountains, or I don't know whether they're man-made or how, but they seem to go up like this, and they're covered with houses. There's just houses all the way up. And there's a lot of places like that, and I thought that really looked neat. So, how much time we got?
We can stop there.
Okay, that'd be a good stopping point.
Okay.